You have a buy rating on, but you also say it's range bound. Is there anything that could happen in this conference right now in San Francisco that would break it out of that range?
I think it's pretty unlikely. This, of course, is focused on developers, where the September announcement is more focused on products and consumers. So WWDC tends not to be a big stock mover. I would say one of the most interesting things that could come out of it, though, is what they do with Siri. There's basically a machine learning war that's starting to go on between Microsoft, Facebook, IBM, and Apple. Apple's perceived as being somewhat behind. So I think we're all waiting to see what improvements there are in Siri, and if, in fact, they open that up with APIs to developers. So that might be the biggest news coming out of the conference.
So, Stephen, we have been talking this morning, obviously, about the Microsoft deal with LinkedIn. How does that change the entire battlefield for Tim Cook and Apple?
I don't know that that specific deal changes things too much. Apple has their own approach. They're obviously super focused in terms of what they do from an M&A perspective. But Apple is perceived as being behind somewhat in software and services. Very unusual this time that they came out with a pre-announcement for developers in terms of offering more subscription capability and search capability within the App Store. I think this is very much trying to bear hug and love the developers. We talk about Apple as a platform. It so happens that Microsoft and LinkedIn are also platforms. Apple's a multi-sided platform. At one level, you have the operating system iOS sitting between consumers and the hardware on one side they monetize, and the content developers on the other side that they tend to subsidize. So I think a lot of what you're going to see today is about developers, about subsidization, about making the platform stronger. That's where there, I think, is an analogy to the Microsoft-LinkedIn deal.
Stephen, if this conference isn't likely to break you out of the range on Apple stock, how much pressure does that put on Tim Cook and Apple for the new iPhone coming out in the fall?
Well, the new iPhone is probably going to move the stock one way or the other. As we've looked at it, we do think the iPhone 7 is likely to have very modest growth. It doesn't look like the features are going to be tremendously different. We continue to have issues in terms of people waiting longer to upgrade. I don't think the 7 is going to change that much. China is weakening on the margin. That's very important, obviously, to Apple. So the 7 is pretty critical. Now, I think Apple takes a longer-term view. Their number one metric, unlike Wall Street perhaps, is customer experience, customer loyalty. So you've got this weird dichotomy where on one hand, the ecosystem for Apple has never been stronger, and that's what WWDC is meant to shore up. On the other hand, the product cycle is quite weak. We expect units to be down possibly double-digit this year. We expect very modest, if any, growth on the iPhone 7 cycle. So you're almost talking about fiscal 18 and the iPhone 8 to really get things working. The reason we have a buy in the stock is our DCF analysis suggests only in a BlackBerry situation really is there significant downside from here.